We're live.
All right. Yep, we're live. And this is my mock draft special guest Eagle Speed. T Kirk's supposed to be here. He might join later. So let's get this show on the road. I'm going to let you start since you're the guest here.
Okay. All right. So
I think we're just going to go by team for both of us. So we're just going to give our picks for each pick.
Okay, so for the Browns, it's basically simple. They got to go with Myles Garrett. I mean, he's the best player on the board. Even though there's talks of them getting Mitch Trubisky, and I wouldn't surprise you if the Browns mess up their pick, but they got to go Myles Garrett.
I agree. I have them getting Myles Garrett. It's not going to be a quarterback. It's not going to be Fournette. And it's not going to be Solomon Thomas. It's going to be the best player in this draft, Garrett. And that's all there is to it, honestly.
For sure. I mean, they could get Mitch Trubisky at 12.
Yeah, I think he'll be there. Quarterback class isn't that great to be picked in the single digits, in my opinion. So
with the next pick at 2.
Yep.
All right. I got Solomon Thomas here going to the 49ers. However, though, I would be surprised if there is a trade if the Browns mess up and take Mitch Trubisky, because that means Myles Garrett, Leonard Fournette, and many other prospects would be there at 2, and that would be a hot spot in the draft. 49ers
if Cleveland messes up, then the whole draft just changes instantaneously.
Yeah, but the 49ers, they're moving to a 4-3 defense. I know they've spent first-round picks these last few years on their defensive line, but that's for 3-4 personnel. They're going to a 4-3 with a new defense, so they take Solomon Thomas.
Yeah, I believe I actually have Solomon Thomas as well. I think Thomas would lock down a weak side defensive end spot for years and provide tremendous 3-down value. And he's the kind of player that helps teams win games. And, well, with the Niners going 2-14, they need to win some games.
They only beat one team last year.
Yeah. God, how does it feel to be the Rams? Like, only team that the San Francisco 49ers beat last year.
For real. Okay, and for the third pick, I have the Bears. I mean, they could go Jamal Adams, even Malik Hooker, even Marshawn Lattimore, but I got him going Jonathan Allen. Part of it me is because I'm just a pass rush guy in general. I really like Jonathan Allen's film. I think this guy is an immediate impact on a defensive line. If he's not making plays, he's easily forcing double teams, and this will complete the Bears' front seven for years to come.
This is where I think we start to differ, because I actually have him taking Jamal Adams. I think that Adams is the most logical choice for the Bears' long-standing need at safety with their third pick in the draft. He's a young playmaker with great hitting ability, and he can play in the box or cover a slot receiver. I mean, I know traditionally teams do not select safeties this early on day one, but the truly elite safeties are taken there, and Adams gives an indication that he could be this type of player. At 6 foot, 214 pounds, he runs a 4.56 40-yard dash, but defends against the run like a linebacker. Teaming a physical safety like Adams with a veteran playmaker like Quentin Demps in the deep secondary would definitely be a good blend. And in Adams, the Bears wouldn't be taking an injury risk like they might have if they selected Jonathan Allen, whose past shoulder injuries have raised red flags.
Yeah, who'd you compare Jamal Adams to?
What? Oh.
Who'd you compare him to in the NFL?
He's just like, it's hard to say with him. He just stands out so much, in my opinion, that it's hard to compare him to anyone.
Okay.
And that's scary to me because I have him going to the Bears and I'm a Packers fan, so can't say this mock draft is biased.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of Jonathan Allen. That's just
Yeah,
me.
I like Jonathan Allen a lot, but I think teams will look at the fact that he has arthritic shoulders,
Right.
and yeah, that might raise some red flags for people. And plus, his combine wasn't the greatest.
Yeah, I could see Adams. That's totally reasonable. But with the fourth pick, I mean, let's be honest, it's Leonard Fournette.
It is Tekken. Tekken is my world. Listen here.
Oh man. Yeah, you got to go with the once in a generational player.
I mean, Leonard Fournette, to me, he continues to rise in the estimation of public analysts around the league, and respected pundits Nolan Nawaraki and Gil Brandt have him ranked second overall to Myles Garrett on recently revealed draft boards. This is a rare show of talent. Well, this is a rare show of respect for a college running back, and as the position is less valued than most at the NFL level. However, it's not an issue with the Jaguars, however, as they have extensively retooled their defense through the past few drafts and free agency periods, leaving them feeling secure on that side of the ball. I feel like the 6 foot, 240-pound bulldozing runner out of New Orleans figures to fit well in a restructured offensive system under old school types Tom Coughlin and Doug Marrone.
Yeah. I mean, when you have a quarterback that's going through his young progressions, that's still developing as an NFL passer, you got to give him a guy who's capable of being a physical threat to bring safeties down in the box and get the play action boots going, which you can do with Blake Bortles. He's a very athletic quarterback. I mean, I liked him coming out of college, and if he wants to make his worth in the NFL, and if the Jaguars want to do what's best for him, they got to take the generational talent.
And plus, I feel like this would be a good business decision for Shad Khan and the Jaguars because, like, the prospect of watching Leonard Fournette get like 30 touches of the ball, I think that will put a lot of butts in the seats.
For sure.
Like the main thing attracting people to go to Jacksonville stadiums is their pool that they have there. Like, oh, we have a pool in our stadium. Big whoop.
Yeah, they need a player that's worth going to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and for the Titans for the fifth pick, this is where I have Jamal Adams finding his home. I mean, because the Titans, they need safeties, of course, and I think they value safeties more than the corner position off of some report that I've heard.
Okay.
And he's just too good to pass up on, and it's just another star they could add to that defense.
Right. I actually have them taking Marshawn Lattimore, the cornerback out of Ohio State. The Titans released Jason McCourty this past week, leaving the team without the corners that started in 2016. I mean, they brought in Logan Ryan, which is a nice start. But now they add Lattimore, who only has 1 year of starting experience, but in that 1 year was named to the first team All Big Ten. He's a very special athlete with elite speed, as proven by his 4.36 40-yard dash, and explosiveness. He was in the top 3 in the broad jump and vertical. And he also plays an incredibly physical on the line of scrimmage, something Dick LeBeau would love. He showed that he has a knack for playing the ball as well, knocking away 9 passes and intercepting 4. And he didn't face off against elite talent during the 2016 season, so it will be interesting to see how he lines up against top receivers in the NFL. But he's a player with all the tools to become an elite cornerback, I think.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Marshawn Lattimore there. His upside is through the roof. If he gets good coaching with his lack of experience, within a year or two, he could polish himself. And, yeah, I think he could eventually be a great corner.
I think so, too.
Yeah, and speaking of Marshawn Lattimore, I have him going next to the Jets. I mean, the Jets have a lot of holes. I mean, they're just a mess right now. I don't think they should take a quarterback because they need to see what. I mean, they just drafted Christian Hackenberg in the second round last year, and they need to see what they have in those guys first before I think they need to draft a quarterback, and they need to fill a huge blatant hole in the roster with Darrelle Revis leaving. And
True.
the Jets are a defensive organization, and I think they need to build around the QB, which is kind of what the Seahawks did with a young quarterback, and you start that by getting an elite secondary, and they take Lattimore here.
Yeah, I actually have them going secondary as well, but I have them taking Malik Hooker, the free safety out of Ohio State. Now, the Jets were terrible in the turnover battle last year. They were tied for 32nd in the league with Chicago on a mark of -20. The Jets lacked game-changing plays all season, and with just 8 interceptions as a team on defense, the need for some playmakers is definitely obvious. Now, I can see how Marshawn Lattimore would fit with the Jets, but I already have him going to Tennessee, so I'm having his teammate Hooker go to the Jets. I think Hooker had an impressive 7 interceptions all by himself last year, and his ball hawking ability is something this defense just lacks. And the added coverage that Hooker would provide, plus the potential trickle-down effect to the rest of the players, just edges it out in his favor here.
I mean, yeah, I could see that too because the Jets, they have a hard hitter. Malik Hooker would make sense because they got a legit NFL prototype strong safety in Calvin Pryor.
Yeah.
Who could just come up and lay the wood at any point of the game. So if they wanted to complete that safety tandem, makes sense. I mean, they got a lot of holes. They could go either way.
I agree.
All right, now to the Chargers. This is where Malik Hooker is on my board here. I got Malik Hooker going to San Diego or LA. I mean, you could just tell, but the void of Eric Weddle that leaves a gaping hole down the deep center field of that defense. And I think their pass rush is underrated, and it can only get better by the development of Joey Bosa. So if they could start developing that pass rush and they get some guys in the back end, the Chargers could have a top 12, top 10 defense next year.
Yeah. If I didn't have the 2 safeties going to elsewhere, then I would have had the Chargers taking one of them, probably Malik Hooker out of the 2 of them. But I actually had them taking Jonathan Allen. The 2 safeties are now off the board, which is unfortunate for LA. However, Allen provides great value here. The Chargers' defensive makeover would look really good if Allen and defensive end Joey Bosa are paired as Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside for the next half dozen years. Allen's versatility and ability to impact on all 3 downs would also be nicely leveraged in new coordinator Gus Bradley's scheme.
I agree. If you see Jonathan Allen there at 7th overall, to me, that's a steal in the top 10.
Oh, yeah.
Plain and simple. You got to take that talent. I agree.
You got to, run up there with the envelope.
All right, and I got 8th overall with the Carolina Panthers. I think out of all the teams in the top 10, the Panthers are the most likely to make a move up in the draft.
Oh, yeah.
But, Leonard Fournette was taken off the board. I don't think Christian McCaffrey, I don't think he fits he's not the fit in their true power style of running. And Dalvin Cook, I think there's just not on their board. So they could use some youth at edge rushers, and I'm going to have them take a Derek Barnett. Myles Garrett may have the most upside, maybe the best pure athlete, but I think the most pure polished pass rusher with technique and hand usage is Derek Barnett. I mean, he broke Reggie White's record, and if you could add a young pass rusher like that, when you got pass rushers that will retire probably after this year, you got to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I have the Panthers taking Derek Barnett. And I know that they have the rotation of Julius Peppers, Mario Addison, and Charles Johnson on the defensive line in 2017. And I know that sounds pretty good. However, Peppers looks to play 20 snaps or so, and Charles Johnson's tooth is quite long these days. Getting pressure on the opposing quarterback is what makes or breaks the Panthers' defense. So don't be surprised if David Gettleman pulls the trigger early on a pass rushing specialist. Now, like you said, Barnett broke Reggie White's record at Tennessee with 33 career sacks, compared to Myles Garrett's 32 and a half.
Right.
And here's a stat that I love. A whopping 28 of Barnett's 33 sacks came against SEC opponents. Even though Garrett has the more prototypical size, Barnett is more of the Panthers type of player. He loves football. Barnett is full of relentless energy and simply just keeps pounding, so to speak. So I think the Panthers end up with the right guy to add depth in 2017 and to grow into a leader for years to come.
Yeah, because it got K1 short for the next 5 years. It got Starlo Tele, and now you add a guy like Derek Barnett.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's see.
Moving on to the Bengals.
The Bengals, I got him taking Reuben Foster here. I think Reuben Foster is the best player on the board, and I think Reuben Foster is a top 5 player of this draft, in my opinion. He's a leader. He's a captain as a middle linebacker position, and the Bengals could use a serious upgrade at the middle linebacker position. Ray Maluga, to me, just simply won't get it done this year in their long-term future. And when you add a guy like Reuben Foster who could blitz through gaps, who could pursue sideline to sideline, stop the run, give you an immediate thumper and an impact on that defense, you combine that with Vontaze Burfict, you got a force. So I got to take a Reuben Foster.
I like that pick a lot. However, I have them taking Mike Williams, the wide receiver out of Clemson. To me, the Bengals have a huge decision on which direction to go here with the 9th pick. A strong, game-changing linebacker like Reuben Foster is a big need, but a big threatening target is needed needed opposite A.J. Green to keep the triple coverage off of him. Williams has a great frame and very trustworthy hands. To get an idea of Williams' physical attributes, he's 6'4", 218 pounds, compared to A.J. Green's 6'4", 210-pound stature. With a healthy 6'5" Tyler Eifert on the field, Cincinnati would be a nightmare to cover and could be unstoppable in the red zone. Williams will keep opposing defenses honest and could help Green have his best season yet. Williams doesn't have blazing speed and might not rack up a lot of yards after the catch, but he's a big physical former basketball player with an enormous catch radius. His body control and strong hands give him a big edge over smaller corners. Williams should be the first wide receiver off the board, as he's considered the most pro-ready of the top 3 wide receivers in the draft. He had some injuries in college, but bounced back for a highlight-filled final campaign with 84 snags, 1,000-plus yards, and 10 touchdowns. Williams will need work on route running and concentration, but his sure hands and blocking ability make him an immediate asset.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. I could see giving Andy Dalton more weapons. You got to be better in the red zone. And the defense relatively kept Cincinnati in a lot of games this year, but the loss of Marvin Jones, the loss of Mohamed Sanu, it took a blow, and you need to give A.J. Green some help. They could easily go Mike Williams. That's a good pick there, too. So with the 11th pick with the New Orleans Saints.
10th.
Or, yeah, the 10th pick. Yeah, that's right, with the Buffalo Bills. This is where I have Mike Williams going to. Quarterback is an issue. I mean, you don't know the long-term future of Tyrod Taylor. Loss of Robert Woods. You see a guy like Mike Williams here who you can pair up with Sammy Watkins and develop together for years, I think would be relatively smart. And even if you do move on from Tyrod Taylor, or if you draft a rookie or get a free agent, back has to have a good team and a supporting cast around him. So anytime you could add a playmaker like Mike Williams, I think they should do it.
All right. Now here's where I have Reuben Foster. When rank ordering the Bills' top 7 pre-draft needs, starting weak side linebacker, wide receiver, slot corner, starting right tackle, backup strong side linebacker, backup quarterback, and safety depth, only one is for that of a 3-down starter not currently on the roster. Weak side inside linebacker. Reggie Ragland and Preston Brown are both Mike linebackers who lack the sideline to sideline range and coverage ability. Zach Brown was not re-signed. Sounds like McDermott wants his own Kuechly and Davis duo in Buffalo. Foster, like Kuechly, was a Butkus Award winner and a consensus All-American and a Defensive Player of the Year in his conference. As seniors, both Foster and Kuechly had 4 games with double-digit tackles. You describe both as fearless, physical players who relish contact. Both have been opportunistic game changers who are capable of making plays anywhere on the field. Reuben Foster is college football's best weak side linebacker. He'd play alongside college football's best middle linebacker in his 2015 teammate Reggie Ragland. Don't worry about his shoulder surgery. His agent says he's ahead of schedule and he's slam dunk for training camp. If he slips by the Bengals at number 9, I think he'll be a Bill at number 10.
Yeah. I like Reuben. That'll be a good pick for the Bills.
Especially playing with Reggie Ragland. You got that chemistry from Bama.
Right. Now to the Saints pick. Their defense is basically a bunch of third-string college players playing.
Pretty much.
It seems like, at least, for that point. I don't think they should go corner here because they're developing a lot of young corners like Delvin Breaux and P.J. Williams, so you want to keep giving those guys experience and develop those. What you do need to do to help those young corners is help out your veteran, Cameron Jordan. So I have Taco Charlton being the pick here. This dude he's a great run stuffer. He's a great run stuffer. Him and Cameron Jordan stopping the run can force 3rd and longs and help the defense get off the field. And when Taco Charlton can pin his ears back and rush the passer, you could create more turnovers, and hopefully it'll give somewhat more of an impact. And people could actually start at least giving some respect to the Saints pass rush, which they haven't had in years.
Right. I also have them taking Taco Charlton. The Saints are in desperate need of an edge rusher to play across from Jordan. And I believe they would love it if Taco Charlton fell to them at number 11. Charlton has amazing size, athleticism, and length with great pass rushing skills. And he would do a lot to improve New Orleans' stop unit.
Yeah, I would say the New Orleans Saints are the Texas Tech of the NFL.
Oh, yeah, I'd say so, too. Great offense, just terrible, terrible defense.
All right, so with the Browns at 12, this is pretty easy. Everyone knows this is a slam dunk pick for a quarterback, and they have to go with a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, who openly came out and said he wanted to play for Cleveland, and you don't see that. Yeah, and I think it's just too obvious. They have to take Trubisky here.
Yep. I mean, Hugh Jackson can have it all. He wants a quarterback, and he lands the hometown kid with the Browns' first round pick. Things are looking up for the Browns, I'd say. Kinda. I don't know. Who knows? I've said that before, and that came back to bite my face. The Browns obviously need a quarterback. Well, when don't they need a quarterback? And I believe that Trubisky is what Hugh Jackson is looking for. Now, Trubisky does have his flaws, and some might question his lack of experience, only having 13 games under his belt as a college starter. But he's very accurate and has a quick release. I think that Jackson may envision Trubisky as his new Andy Dalton.
I can see that. It's about time that the Browns find a franchise quarterback.
I know, right?
I mean,
Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, I don't feel sorry for him, but I could thank him for taking Tim Couch over Donovan McNabb.
Right.
Yeah. So with the 13th pick for the Arizona Cardinals, I think Corey Davis finds his home here. You lost Michael Floyd, who at times was a serviceable number 2 option. You have a speedster in John Brown who could go off for huge plays at any time. You got Larry Fitzgerald, of course, also getting up there in age. And I think Arizona will take a guy like Nathan Peterman late in the draft that's just a developmental quarterback to sit behind with Bruce Arians and Carson Palmer. But the simple fact is that the Cardinals' strength has been the wide receiving core over these last few years. And it took a dip a little bit with Michael Floyd. You got an aging Larry Fitzgerald. What a better thing to do to bring Corey Davis, to me, who has the most upside. I think Mike Williams is more polished, but I think Corey Davis has more upside. And you bring a guy like that who's raw, who can learn with Larry Fitzgerald, that'll be very, very, very beneficial for Corey Davis to learn from Larry Fitzgerald.
I agree. Corey Davis, wide receiver out of Western Michigan. I've heard that Arizona seems to covet Deshaun Kaiser, the quarterback from Notre Dame, though many experts currently expect him to slide into the second round. And as a result, general manager Steve Keim may favor trading down into the 20s to pursue his quarterback and stockpile picks in a deep class. However, he may have a tough time finding a trade partner that is willing to move up in a draft that lacks elite talent at the quarterback position. Keim would be expected to jump on several defensive prospects here, including safety Jamal Adams, safety Malik Hooker, cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, or inside linebacker Reuben Foster. But with those players off of my board, this pick likely comes down to Corey Davis or linebacker Hassan Reddick. Davis is one of the top wide receivers available, but is one of the draft's major mysteries after minor ankle surgery prevented him from working out at the Combine and his Western Michigan Pro Day. Still, Davis dominated the MAC with 331 catches for 5,278 yards and 52 touchdowns over the course of his 4-year career. With outstanding size, 6'3" and 209 pounds, and a projected 4.48 40-yard dash, Davis could provide a spark to the Cardinals' offense and be the long-term replacement for Fitzgerald.
Exactly. And I think, and like I said, I think he can learn a lot from Larry Fitzgerald. And me as an Eagle fan, the Cardinals like to draft Eagle killers at wide receiver. And I think Corey Davis could be that, unfortunately. But we'll see what happens. Yeah. But I like Corey Davis with the pick. But they could go quarterback. They could go inside linebacker, corner. It just depends on who's there.
Yeah.
So with the Philadelphia Eagles next, they have a huge conflict here because they got the 32nd ranked cornerbacks in the league that's been completely holding back their defense. The Eagles' defense was ranked 13th in the league with the worst rated corners in football because the pass rush gives them a chance.
Right.
You have a young quarterback in Carson Wentz, and you have Alshon Jeffrey on a 1-year deal, and you have Jordan Matthews in his contract year. Could you take a wide receiver here depending on who's there for insurance? You could. Could you take a franchise running back knowing that Ryan Matthews is about to get cut anytime soon? Darren Sproles is retiring after this year, and your running backs past that are not franchise runners. I say with this loaded corner class, you get a corner later. I'm not a huge fan of John Ross. If the Eagles take a receiver, I'd want it to be Mike Williams or Corey Davis, but they're both gone. So that leaves with me taking Christian McCaffrey, the running back from Stanford. This is a guy that could easily get the ball 14 to 15 times on the ground and maybe catch the ball 5 to 6 times a game. I think he can handle a heavy workload, just not 30 touches a game like he did at Stanford. You could give him the ball 15, 16, 17 times a game. And the Eagles last year faced a lot of 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 7s. Combine that with their horrible receiving core last year, the Eagles' offense would stall. If they could keep the defense unbalanced with the running back like Christian McCaffrey and stay in third and manageables and do play action boots and take advantage of Wentz's athleticism, this could take the Eagles offense to another level. So I have them taking Christian McCaffrey.
I also have them taking Christian McCaffrey. Philly's front office seems awfully high on McCaffrey, and for the most part, McCaffrey wins the measurables in production game. He's arguably the best all-purpose back in the 2017 NFL draft. And McCaffrey's skill set is like that of Brian Westbrook reincarnated. What the consensus All-American lacks in burst and pure speed, he makes up for with a smooth, patient running style and tremendous vision. He's an elite receiver out of the backfield with 82 receptions for 672 yards and 8 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons alone. McCaffrey even returns punts and kicks, with a touchdown doing each. If his ceiling is Westbrook, his floor is probably Darren Sproles. McCaffrey will hang around the NFL for years because he's intelligent and versatile with the ability to take a handoff or line up as a wide receiver.
Yeah, you just can't deny the fit here. The Eagles have been the Eagles are a notorious screen team with LaShawn McCoy. They've been a top 10 screen team in the league for years, and that continues here with Doug Peterson as you add a triple threat in Christian McCaffrey. Now, with the next pick, the Indianapolis Colts. Look, you got, to me, easily a top 6, top 7 quarterback talent lies with Andrew Luck. Your general manager has been obsessed with wide receivers in the past. You got plenty of wide receivers. You invested a little bit in free agency on the front 7. So is there an offensive lineman worth taking here? Maybe. But I think overall, though, Zach Cunningham, the inside linebacker for Vanderbilt, will give you a inside linebacker in that interior of a defense. He's a tackle machine. His play recognition is outstanding, and you're going to have to face – there's some offenses in that division that are on the rise in Tennessee with the Jaguars if they take Leonard Fournette, and if the Texans if they find a franchise quarterback. If the Colts are smart, they'll take the best defensive player here and build their offensive line later in the draft.
Another note, they actually fired Brixton, their old GM, and now they have
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. I have them taking Hassan Reddick, the edge rusher / outside linebacker out of Temple. And to me, edge rusher and corner are obviously the top 2 needs for their defense. But depending on how the first round plays out, neither position may have a player meeting the rating of the defensive standout from Temple. I feel like the Colts would take Alabama's Jonathan Allen, Tennessee's Derek Barnett, and Alabama's Marlon Humphrey ahead of Reddick. Otherwise, well, actually, maybe not Marlon Humphrey. I feel like they would take Jonathan Allen and Derek Barnett over Reddick. Otherwise, the obvious need at linebacker makes this versatile and agile speedster an obvious choice. Hassan Reddick actually walked on at Temple as a cornerback, and he's got some coverage skills, and he can play inside linebacker, outside linebacker, and he can rush the passer, which to me, you need someone with that kind of versatility in Indianapolis.
Yes. I could see that, Hassan Reddick. I could see that. They just need front 7 help in general.
Yeah, pretty much. Probably a cornerback, too, because Vontae Davis can't do it by himself.
Yeah, they got a lot of holes on that defense.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible.
With the 16th pick, I'm going to kind of throw a curveball with this pick. With the 16th pick, the Baltimore Ravens will select John Ross, the wide receiver out of Washington. I don't think Brashad Perriman, he's a hit or miss home run kind of receiver.
Yeah.
You got Mike Wallace, who's just about out of his prime. And Joe Flacco has a big arm, okay? You invested a first-round pick on your offensive line in Ronnie Stanley, who looks like is a stud. You got Marshall Yanda on that offensive line. So you got some studs on that offensive line. And if you want an offensive tackle to replace Ricky Wagner, you could take a guy like Cam Robinson probably in the 2nd round. But you take a guy like John Ross, which will give you speed with Rashad Perriman on the outside, speed with John Ross on the slot, and speed with Mike Wallace on the outside. And to me, that's going to put conflict on defenses, and that would benefit Joe Flacco.
I like that pick a lot, but I have them taking Cam Robinson, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. And I know that they took Ronnie Stanley last year, but sitting right here in the middle of the first round, there's a host of different directions the Ravens could go. However, a big loss and glaring need at right tackle, a rumored Aussie infatuation, and a reported franchise belief in the prospect's versatility lead me to go with the massive lineman from the Crimson Tide. Over the course of this draft process, I've written often about the priority of keeping Flacco upright and bolstering a lackluster ground game. Since 2009, the Ravens' success has been defined by whether they have a 1,000-yard rusher, making the playoffs when they do, and missing when they don't. So building an offensive line that establishes an advantage on the ground is a must. Robinson, though, is a bit of a gamble, does that. Now, arguments can be made for John Ross, Dalvin Cook, Takaris McKinley, Garyon Conley, and more. The Ravens are, at the moment, a mediocre football team that fails to impress in any one area. And as such, they need big-time players across the board. And the pressure is on Ozzie Newsome in this draft more than any other in recent memory.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you don't take a wide receiver here, if you don't take a guy like Conley or Marlon Humphrey or a top corner, because I don't think Brandon Carr is their answer at long-term wise at corner. But yeah, it's got to be a dynamic playmaker for Joe Flacco because I think he needs more weapons. You could go running back here. You could go offensive line, but yeah, it's definitely going to be Cam Robinson or John Ross because if Cam Robinson doesn't fail at right tackle, then I think he'll succeed at right guard.
Right.
But I do give Cam Robinson this. Cam Robinson pretty much has faced every top pass rusher in this draft and has held his own, honestly.
Yeah. He kept Myles Garrett in check.
So if you want to protect Joe Flacco, get that running game going a little bit, I could see that. They could probably go running back third or fourth round and pick up a receiver later, but we'll see what happens. So the next pick for the Washington Redskins. All right, I know this personally. Okay, the Redskins historically put up the worst third down defense of all time last year. They made third string running backs look like starters last year with their run defense. And they have Trent Murphy on a 4-game suspension, and he's not a pass rushing kind of linebacker. And I don't think a corners were taken here, and they at least got Josh Norman as a number one premier corner. So I think this is where Hassan Reddick finds his place. I think Hassan Reddick's going to be a Washington Redskin as a versatile piece. He can move across that front. If you wanted to get after the quarterback, you can. He was a corner walk-on at Temple, so if you want him to go in coverage on third down, you can. And face it, the Redskins, their future with Kirk Cousins is up in the air. They need a running back. They could use a center, which they could take later. But Hassan Reddick is a versatile player that I think they won't pass up on for their defense.
Nice. I like that pick. If I didn't have them going to the Colts, I would have had them going to Washington. But I have them taking Malik McDowell, defensive tackle, Michigan State. Now, McDowell is a polarizing prospect. He possesses all of the size, talent, and athletic movement skills an NFL defensive coach dreams of. He also seems to lack the heart required to play professional sports altogether. McDowell played at a high enough level in 2015 to be knocked the number one overall pick on some draft sites. But in 2016, despite a strong start in which he garnered at least 3 quarterback hurries in each of his first 4 games, things changed. When it became apparent that Michigan State was going to have an underachieving season, McDowell just shut it down. In addition to questions about his football character, McDowell needs to work on the consistency of his technique, as he often played high off the snap, exposing his chest, and relied on his athleticism rather than what he was coached to do. In fact, at the Combine, McDowell admitted in his media session that coaches at Michigan State gave up trying to coach him and let him do what he did best, so to quote. Why he would admit something like that at the biggest interview of his life is as scary as his inconsistent motor. So, terrible pick for Washington, right? Wrong. Jim Tomsula is a no-nonsense defensive line coach that has always gotten the best out of his players. If any coach in the NFL can turn McDowell's tremendous potential into a reality, it's Tomsula. Expect McDowell to earn his snaps and show the coaches that he is going to play for the team down in and down out before he is made a starter. Only then can McDowell become the star he wants to be on the Washington defense.
Yeah, absolutely agree. The Redskins, they made Terrence West of the Ravens got 9 yards a carry on the Washington Redskins. Ryan Matthews, 7 yards a carry on the Washington Redskins. If you cannot stop the run, even in the passing league, you don't stand a chance. So for them to beef up front, and their best defensive tackle as of right now is Terrell McClain from Dallas, and that won't cut it, especially in a 3-4 defense when defensive tackles are asked to take out double teams. So they do need to beef up front, and that's a good pick with Malik McDowell. That's definitely reasonable.
I mean, again, it just depends on which Malik McDowell we're going to see.
Yeah, and they got freaking Tomsula over there, so hopefully he can light him up and get the best out of him, probably.
Yeah.
So the next pick is Tennessee, correct?
Yep. They have two.
Yep. I think the Titans they need interior linebacker help, and I think they take Jared Davis, the inside linebacker from Florida. Now, he has injury concerns, some inconsistency concerns, but when this dude is on, I think he's a standout linebacker. You put Jared Davis in the defensive front with Brian Orakpo, with Jarrell Casey. You complete that linebacking core with a leader and a captain in Jared Davis that could help their run defense too. Great run defender, great captain, and fills a huge void in their middle linebacker position with a guy like Jared Davis.
All right. I have Tennessee taking John Ross, the wide receiver out of Washington.
Right.
Now, the Titans addressed their biggest need right away thanks to the Rams trade last season. So John Ross is still sitting here, and Tennessee will be ecstatic. Ross is best known for his speed. It was no secret during the 2016 season at Washington. But if you didn't watch him at all, you certainly heard about him breaking Chris Johnson's NFL Combine record for the 40-yard dash. But on top of that, he's a high-level route runner and can play the slot or outside, making him a valuable weapon for Marcus Mariota, who is returning from a broken fibula and will need some stability as he regains form.
Okay. I like that. I like that when you got a running game led by DeMarco Murray, Derrick Henry. You lost Kendall Wright, so you take a guy like John Ross at his 4.22 speed, and that makes you put 8 men in the box. That's an instant conflict that will put on defensive coordinators.
And I think Tennessee will be a run-first team, but with a guy like John Ross, it will keep the defense honest.
Right. So the next pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a team that that needs to get over the hump. They're that people say they're like the Cowboys of the past. You know, this 8-8 team with the young franchise quarterback. Not some good pieces on defense, but not a complete defense. They have injury-prone playmakers on offense. So I have them taking the 2-time All-American running back Dalvin Cook from Florida State to pair up with Jameis Winston. Look, Doug Martin is a liability. Okay, he's injury prone. The Buccaneers running game was putrid last year. I think it was below 3 yards a carry. I think so. If you want to help out Jameis Winston, you got Deshaun Jackson, who's a deep threat. You got Mike Evans, who could get down the field when one-on-one jump balls. You got Cameron Brate, who's developing to a rising star tight end, honestly. And Adam Humphries as a fourth option rather than a 2 or 3 will make his job easier too. So you give him a running game, get that 2 to 3 yards of carry to be second and 6s, 4 or 5 yards of carry, give you a home run threat running the ball. Tampa's offense will take the next level next year.
I also have them taking Dalvin Cook. General Manager Jason Licht didn't exactly give a glowing vote of confidence to Doug Martin in Monday's presser, though it is a positive to see Martin report to OTAs. And if Dalvin Cook or Christian McCaffrey were to be drafted in the first, you can be certain that Martin and his contract will be jettisoned. Team management loves to float rumors and create misdirection, as they had proxy Booger McFarland out and about doing just that in support of Cook. A sure sign that the Bucs are shielding their true covetee? If the pick isn't one of the 2 running backs, my short list includes O.J. Howard, before Cook, McCaffrey if available, David Njoku, Obi Melifonwu, Budda Baker, or defensive ends such as Charles Harris. Moreover, do not rule out a trade-up for Howard or Derek Barnett, or a trade-down from Tampa Bay.
Right. For sure with that one.
And there are questions about Dalvin Cook's character, but I feel like reuniting with Jameis Winston, who has done a lot of growing up himself, I think that'll be good for a guy like Dalvin Cook.
Yep, I could see that. So the next pick with the Denver Broncos, I have them taking Cam Robinson, the offensive tackle from Bama. Look, they had some struggles running the ball. They have some struggles protecting the quarterback. Their defense, for the most part, is basically still set in place. Everyone could basically pencil in the Broncos for having a top 10 defense next year minimum. And you have a young quarterbacks in place, and you have a decent receiving core. So to me, you build that offensive line for Paxton Lynch to take over eventually. You give him protection, makes the running game go better, and I think it's just the best pick for him.
I also have them going offensive line. However, I've already gotten Cam Robinson off the board, so I'm having them take Garrett Bowles, the offensive tackle out of Utah. As the draft nears, I'm starting to think that someone is going to select a tackle before this pick. It seems as if Bowles was the tackle whose question marks seemed the less scary. His sketchy past is far behind him, and his age isn't as concerning as Cam Robinson's recent off-the-field issues or Ryan Ramchick's current injury. Still, I found myself thinking that if we took away all the question marks and focused on the tape, Bowles would be the third best prospect of the bunch. Now, in this scenario, we have Cam Robinson being selected within 8 picks of each other. This makes me think that Denver may not be in the same position as I thought months ago, where they are selecting their favorite of the group. That could force them to consider a tight end or a defensive prospect here, because their D-line could stand to use some more bulk. With that being said, I am still betting on the tackle here. Any 3 of them, Robinson, Ramchick, or Bowles, would be an upgrade on Denver's left side. Bowles is a project, but I think he has the most upside of the tackles in this group.
Yeah. You got to protect your young quarterbacks, and you got to build a running game. So let's see. The next pick, the Detroit Lions. I have them taking the low-key, one of the under-the-radar players who's honestly first-round talent and who should be talked about more, and that is Obi Melifonwu, the safety from UConn. He's a versatile piece at 6'4". You can put him at corner, put him at strong safety. The Lions do need both. The need for pass rushes here and the need for linebackers here. The Lions just need defensive help in general. But you get a guy like Obi Melifonwu, who's 6'4", led the combine in jumping. He's an athletic freak. Put him in the box to help stop the run. Put him as a corner to help coverage. It'll be just a nice, versatile piece to add to a much-needed secondary in the defense.
I think that they do need secondary, but however, I'm going to give them Tim Williams, the outside linebacker out of Alabama. Tim Williams has one of the best first steps coming into the NFL. This trait immediately gives the Lions fan base more fuel for their fire. Notice the speed of Williams bending around tackles with a pulverizing finish. Simply put, you can't teach speed. Williams has a similar build to speed rushers like Vic Beasley and Khalil Mack, with similar results. A total of 41 hits and sacks in 3 years over 482 pass rushing attempts. The biggest question marks against Tim Williams is a response given at the Combine, followed by an arrest for possessing a gun in September. When asked if he ever failed a drug test, Williams acknowledged he did, saying, "That's what life is about, being a man on and off the field, owning up to your mistakes." This obviously puts the Lions in a tricky situation. One does have to appreciate the honesty here. That being said, under Jim Caldwell, the Lions ranked 27th in penalties, and only one player has been arrested since Caldwell took over. If anything, the Lions defense immediately gains a player who is eager to leave his past behind him and prove that he's worth the pick, while Williams gains a team that can change his wicked ways with unrelenting discipline. And plus, the Lions only had 26 sacks last year. Ziggy Ansah had a down year. So having someone next to Ziggy Ansah while Ziggy Ansah is getting double-teamed, yeah, get Tim Williams on the opposite side of him and have him rush as well.
I do like Tim Williams from Bama, and if it weren't him and some off-field stuff, he's a top 15 pick in my opinion. And him being a 3-4 outside linebacker and pass rush help, he could go to Washington. He could have went to the Colts. But I think he just dips down a little bit. And Detroit, they need a pass rush. They need to give Ziggy Ansah some help. And
plus, this is Ziggy Ansah's contract year coming up.
True. They need to get a young defensive end talent. I could see that there. With the next pick, the Miami Dolphins. Now, this is a team that surprised people last year, and I do expect them to be the same, possibly not even better, because last year they did this while learning under a completely new system, which to me is impressive. I think Adam Gase is a great coach. I think him and Ryan Tannehill are going to groom together for years. They could go offensive line here because they did have the 30th ranked line in the league, and you can't go wrong protecting your quarterback. But I take a look at their corners. Byron Maxwell, to me, is a number 2 corner in this league. And outside of Byron Maxwell, they got Tony Lippett as their next corner. So I have the Miami Dolphins, in fact, taking Gary and Conley, the corner from Ohio State. They got Rashad Jones as a strong safety. They got Byron Maxwell. They got okay free safety, good enough to not take one here. You take Gary on Conley, that secondary beefs up, and that defense from Miami is going to be something as far as the secondary.
Another thing to add about the offensive line in Miami, they traded Brandon Albert to the Jaguars, so that means they're moving Laramie Tunsil to left tackle, which means
they do need offensive line help.
But I actually have them taking Jabril Peppers, the safety/linebacker out of Michigan. Now, rumors are rampant 1 week before the NFL draft, and one of the latest has the Dolphins listening to offers for their pick at 22. This team is one more good draft away from fielding a very dangerous team, so acquiring multiple picks in a deep draft might be a wise move. Speaking of dangerous, though, Jabril Peppers may not fit the classic condition of any traditional NFL defensive position, but he does fit the classic definition of this all-important football asset, playmaker. A savvy defensive coordinator won't worry about trying to label him as an in-the-box safety or hybrid linebacker or whatever. He will simply put him in a position to do what he does best, blowing up plays. Peppers' athleticism was on display at the Combine, finishing in the top 5 among safeties and linebackers in the 40-yard dash and broad jump. On the field, Peppers stood out on a defense full of future NFL players as he racked up 72 tackles, 16 of them for loss, 4 sacks, 1 interception, and a punt return touchdown.
Right. I totally agree with that kind of mindset for the Miami Dolphins. So the next pick, the New York Football Giants. Now, you want to talk about a slip right here. and kind of pretty much a steal as far as the best talent available at a huge position of need. And as an Eagles fan, I hate saying this, but the New York Giants will select O.J. Howard, the tight end from Alabama. And people, I don't think people, because the people haven't seen a tight end class stacked like this in years. So I understand why people aren't talking O.J. Howard as much as like the running backs and the corners and such. But O.J. Howard is a 6'6", 250-pound man who ran the same 40-yard dash time as Dalvin Cook, who's a two-time All-American at the NFL Combine. This dude blocks like a right tackle in this league, which the Giants could use a tight end that could do that as well. You combine O.J. Howard with Odell Beckham, Brandon Marshall, and Sterling Shepard, and a young quarterback after Eli that takes over, it's going to be – and you always have to have a security tight end.
I also have them taking O.J. Howard. This move is all about loading up on playmakers for the Giants offense. Howard adds a middle-of-the-field complement to the strong receiving corps. And Howard wasn't used often in the passing game at Alabama, but he has the size and speed to stretch the seam. He averaged 7.1 yards after the catch per reception over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, that is true. And you got to think 18% of O.J. Howard's production in his college career were in both national title games against Clemson, which that may be an underlying statistic, but it does mean that O.J. Howard will show up when the bright lights are on against subpar quarterbacks, in my opinion, that he worked with also. So I think that would be a great pick. So the Oakland Raiders, I think they're in a tough spot right now because there's not a ton of value at linebacker here because of my mock. I have Foster gone, I have Zach Cunningham gone, and I have Jared Davis gone, and I have Hassan Reddick gone. So there's not a lot of value at linebacker here, and they're a team that's building long term. They got a young quarterback, and they got young weapons over there. The only thing that's aged for them over there, honestly, if they get Marshawn Lynch or a couple pieces. So that's why I have them taking the cornerback Marlon Humphrey from Bama. I think Marlon Humphrey, as far as tackling and hitting, is the best corner in this draft. I think his speed and athleticism is a huge upside. You give this kid good coaching at age 20, which meaning after his rookie deal, he'll only be 24 years old. That's a young stud corner that Oakland just have in their secondary for years, and it'll be a nice compliment to Sean Smith.
Now, this might be a surprise pick for me, but I actually have Oakland taking Ryan Ramczyk, the offensive tackle out of Wisconsin. Big, ugly, and country strong. Those are traits that Reggie McKenzie likes, and he will see those in spades with Ryan Ramczyk. In this good to great themed draft, how will Oakland choose to address its numerous holes? The Raiders return 2 ball carriers that average 5'8" and 198 pounds after losing their 2-time leading rusher. At right tackle, the competition features less than stellar players. On the defensive front, the Silver and Black was dead last in the NFL in sacks and just cut starting returner Dan Williams. The linebacker corps returns only 1 starter from a group that was among the league's worst last year, and the defensive backfield was poor enough to necessitate firing group's coach. Can you name a 12-4 team that had so many weaknesses with such plethora of potential directions? I will go with the spot that I think Reggie is most eager to avoid being a pitfall. Likely starter Austin Howard allowed 5 of the Raiders' 18 sacks, and it would be nice to get his poor performance off the field and his contract off the books. Ramczyk, a true road grader, cements the Raiders as the league's best O-line potentially behind Dallas. So he makes a lot of sense here.
Oh, yeah.
Although, watch out for Montravius Adams, though. He's a big reach on this draft board, but he's the best fit at that much-needed defensive tackle spot.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The Oakland Raiders, they need defensive help. And if they want to compete with the New England Patriots, one, they got to hit Tom Brady, And two, they got to have a secondary, which, I mean, like I said, the edge rushing here, I mean, they got edge rushers. They need interior rushers. But as far as that goes, yeah, Montravius Adams, yeah, it's not a value, but you get a young guy like Marlon Humphrey, I think you could just build around him for years in your secondary.
Yeah.
But
I can see them taking an offensive tackle, though, for some reason.
Right. So the next pick at the Houston Texans, this is very predictable, okay? If Pat Mahomes is here, they're taking him, all right? Pat Mahomes, especially a local prospect from Texas, that's a huge business move with local Texas Tech fans buying just Houston Texan fans. Business move with tickets. So the owner will have some cash in his pocket. And they got good coaches over there with Bill O'Brien who are good with quarterbacks. If you want Mahomes to sit for a year, you can. But to me, if you draft Pat Mahomes, I think what's best for him is that you give him starting experience and have him learn right away. The Texans, if they had Pat Mahomes or any average quarterback playing last year, they would have beaten the Patriots in the playoffs. Their defense is that good. Their running game is that good. They could go offensive line, but you got to favor the QB position. So I got him taking Pat Mahomes.
Okay, so this is a very polarizing pick for me. I have them taking a quarterback, but I have them taking Deshaun Watson, the quarterback out of Clemson. And I think that Texans fans should be happy about this pick. After enduring painful quarterback play since 2002, landing the back-to-back NCAA Power 5 quarterback of the year, who just led his team to a come-from-behind national championship against the so-called unbeatable Alabama defense, would be a godsend in Houston. By no means is Deshaun Watson a perfect quarterback. But I can't recall Brady, Manning, or Luck being called perfect either. It's a little early to compare Watson with two of the greatest of all time. But when comparing Watson to Luck, Watson had the better collegiate career. Luck never passed for more than 4,000 yards in any of his collegiate seasons. Yet Deshaun Watson has done it twice. When Luck declared for the draft, he was being hailed as the hottest quarterback prospect since Manning. Yet Watson gets no love even after performing at a higher level against better competition across a long period of time. It honestly blows my mind. Hope is not a method for success, but I sure hope the rest of the league continues to underestimate Deshaun's value until pick 25 so I can be right with this pick. In a perfect Texans world, Watson can get a year to sit behind Savage while Savage explodes during a contract year. Houston then can tag Savage and bait another team for a high first rounder next year. If Watson is gone, look for a trade up to land Mahomes, though.
Yeah, honestly, you could go either way. I mean, Pat Mahomes, he could sling it. He can make all the throws in the book. He's an aggressive gunslinger and a local Texas product. I do like Deshaun Watson, and I agree with you 100% about the competition he deal with. I mean, honestly, I think Alabama's defense would dismantle every single other quarterback in this draft class with ease. Okay, Mitch Trubisky has played 13 games. He would not last against Alabama. Pat Mahomes, he would not last against Alabama and all the other quarterbacks. And to throw for over 400 yards in a game against that kind of defense, which people don't realize how unfair that defense was. They were down 14-0, let it come back, and he's a winner. Plain and simple, I like Deshaun Watson, that pick. I think it's either him or Mahomes.
It's got to be a quarterback either way.
Yeah. So the next pick, the Seattle Seahawks. This is kind of a curveball pick here too, but I do have them taking Jabril Peppers here with this pick. I think that Earl Thomas injury, you don't know what Earl Thomas is after that injury. You could put Jabril Peppers, he seems like a Seahawks system player to me. You could put him anywhere. You could put him at an outside linebacker next to Bobby Wagner. You could put him as a slot corner, which they do need a corner in the slot. They could use that or a corner on the outside. This dude was a Heisman. You need a safety hybrid. I think it makes sense.
I actually have the Seahawks taking Takaris McKinley, the defensive end out of UCLA. And with 1 week left until the NFL draft, this is what we know Seattle could do. They could trade Richard Sherman or don't, and trade Marshawn Lynch or don't. This implies heavily that the Seattle front office will be wheeling and dealing. Schneider has a tendency to trade picks, like last year's deal, to move further back in round one. See Germain Ifedi. There's a fairly good chance that Seattle doesn't make a selection at 26 or even in round one. If Seattle holds on to this pick or stays in round one, a player like McKinley is in the cards. I mean, I've talked about the versatility of the former UCLA Bruin that he offers by playing effectively against the run and pass. Sure, Seattle just did sign Dion Jordan to possibly play that same role. However, Jordan had issues getting on the field in Miami. And at this point in his career, he's a flyer with potential. McKinley is younger by 6 years and outperformed Jordan in college with more sacks and forced fumbles while falling one tackle for loss short of the Oregon Duck.
Right. Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, that could work too. But a guy like Peppers, I don't know. I think for some reason,
yeah.
when I watch Peppers, he just seems like he has Seahawk written all over him to me.
Oh, yeah, I can see it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs, I have them doing a kind of a weird pick here too. I have them actually taking Deshaun Watson with this pick.
Okay.
All right. Deshaun Watson has, I mean, you got to think Andy Reid, first of all, is really good at developing quarterbacks. And I think he may see a little bit of a McNabb-like ceiling with Deshaun Watson. So I think this makes all the sense in the world to start developing a quarterback. If Alex Smith cannot win you a playoff game this year, you have got to move on from him, because last year that Kansas City Chiefs team was too good to not win a playoff game. So right. if the Chiefs do not win a playoff game with Alex Smith, you have to move on from him. You have to.
Yeah, I think it's about time for Alex Smith to go bye-bye as well. And I have them taking Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback out of Texas Tech. Mahomes, the son of the former Major League Baseball pitcher, plays a backyard style of football and seems an ill fit for the mistake-free Chiefs brand of offense. Yet every analyst has made a comparison to Brett Favre at some point, and all agree that Mahomes has the highest ceiling of all quarterbacks in this draft class. He's smart, has raw arm talent, good size, and mobility. He manipulates defenders well and throws he makes throws that no other can match. Mahomes led the nation in passing yards, hitting targets for a combined 5,052 yards. He scored 41 touchdowns and owned an amazing 157.0 quarterback rating. The Red Raider quarterback threw for over 580 yards and scored 6 touchdowns in his season finale against Baylor. I do have doubts that Mahomes will drop past Arizona. If General Manager John Dorsey wants Mahomes, he will most likely need to trade up to grab it. Alex Smith will be the Chiefs' signal caller in 2017. Reid has reinforced that message several times. A year as an understudy to Smith will be the best medicine for Mahomes. Smith often looked the part of a Pro Bowl quarterback in 2016, thanks to the big playability of Pro Bowl rookie Tyreek Hill.
Right.
Yet at times, his play was also very inefficient, specifically in the losses to Tampa Bay, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh.
Man, you got to blame that loss against Pittsburgh in the playoffs. That's on Alex Smith. How do you not perform against Pittsburgh's defense?
Seriously.
I mean, that Chiefs defense is legit. Their running game is legit. Their offensive line is even underrated at times. They got speed at receiver. There's no excuse. That was
all on Alex Smith.
Yeah. But anyways, the next pick with the Dallas Cowboys, I just have them taking what you have with the Seahawks pick. All right, the Cowboys, they need pass rush up in the worst of ways, and I have them taking Takk McKinley out of UCLA. I mean, there's not really much to explain here. I mean, the need here is too big to pass up on Takk McKinley. I mean, just plain and simple.
I actually have the Dallas Cowboys taking Kevin King, the cornerback out of Washington.
Right.
This offseason has hit the Cowboys hard. Arguably, no one has lost more in free agency than America's team. After losing both corners, Morris Claiborne and Brandon Carr, and both starting safeties, Barry Church and J.J. Wilcox to monster-sized deals in the offseason, the board could not have fallen better for Jerry Jones. This is why the Cowboys should run up to the podium and submit their pick for cornerback Kevin King out of Washington. The NFC East is peppered with top-flight receivers: Odell Beckham, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall, and young up-and-coming wideouts like Terrell Pryor, Sterling Shepard, and Jordan Matthews. Simply put, if you do not have your shutdown, put me on an island cornerback type talent, you will lose more games in that division than you will win.
Right.
King had some of the best tape and measurables from the combine, and I am shocked that it took this long for me to get him off the board.
Right. For sure. That it's either it's got to be defense for the Dallas Cowboys either way.
Yeah. Their offense is just fine. So
next pick, I have the Green Bay Packers selecting Charles Harris, the edge rusher out of Mizzou. Green Bay, you guys got young. Corner's such a huge need, but I don't know. I love Charles Harris's spin move, and I think he's an explosive edge rusher off the edge that could help you replace what Julius Peppers was.
Yeah, he's definitely on my top 5 most wanted picks for my team. However, I kind of had a tie at first, but I had to pick one here. For my Green Bay Packers, I have us taking Garyon Conley, the cornerback out of Ohio State. And now, I know Garyon Conley is not considered by many as an elite corner, but he does a lot of things well, which will likely make him a first-round pick. He was able to gain national attention in 2016, recording 12 passes defended and 4 interceptions, which led him to being named to the All-Big Ten second team. Now, the Green Bay Packers are in need of a number 1 cornerback, and Conley could be that player. He has strong man-to-man coverage and can also play nickel corner. The Packers aren't in desperate need of a nickel corner, but they need someone who has the confidence to go one-on-one with the top receiver, and Conley could be that guy. Conley also shows good overall awareness and is tough in run support.
Yeah.
Now I'm tied between Garyon Conley and TJ Watt. Those are the 2 players that I want the most. But Charles Harris, he's definitely number 3 for me.
Right. And with the next pick in the Pittsburgh Steelers, they always get these kind of picks where they just take a gem that just happens to fall to them. And I have them taking Tim Williams, the edge rusher from Bama. You got James Harrison, who's old. You took a first-round pick at Artie Burns last year at corner. He's young. You got to see what he has. You could take a corner later. You could take a guy like Budda Baker, safety help, because you need safety help in the second round. To get a guy like Tim Williams that can help boost your pass rush, can help you boost your young secondary down the road.
I actually have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking David Njoku, the tight end out of Miami, Florida. The Steelers signed Ladarius Green last offseason to replace some of the playmaking ability lost with the retirement of Heath Miller. Move, tight end, was a departure from the Steelers' tendencies to draft exclusively wide-type tight ends, who are effective blockers first and receivers as an afterthought. Green missed the entirety of training camp from injury. He managed to play 6 games before ending the season on IR. Apparently, he had an impact in his brief time on the active roster as the Steelers showed interest in Njoku, meeting with him at Miami's Pro Day. As a raw but extremely athletic tight end, he would serve as an insurance policy should Green fail to recover from injuries. If Green does stay healthy, the Pittsburgh offense with 2 move tight ends would be a mismatch nightmare for opposing defenses. Njoku's athleticism is off the charts. He only has 9 collegiate starts to his name, but this redshirt sophomore managed 16.2 yards per catch and 18 touchdowns for the Miami Hurricanes last season. While clearly developing as a route runner and a blocker, he has the physical tools to be a complete tight end and a dominant one on Sundays.
Right. And with the next pick, the Atlanta Falcons they don't have a lot of holes on the roster. I mean, they have holes, but none of them are just blatant that make you say, wow, you got to go out and get a guy like that. But they lost a guard in free agency. So I have taken Forrest Lamp, the guard, and just bolster up their offensive line to even be better than what it was last year. I mean, this is one of the best players at the offensive line position here. And you protect Matt Ryan, give him more protection, and with the new offensive coordinator, I think you got to give him a good offensive line to work with too.
I agree. I have Atlanta taking Forrest Lamp, the guard out of Western Kentucky. And I think the only real hole on the Falcons roster is at guard. Despite a few half-hearted lunges at filling the spot in free agency, the hole still remains. And while they have brought in oft-injured Hugh Thornton to compete with undrafted free agent Ben Garland and a 6th-round pick, Wes Schweitzer, the hole still remains, obviously. In fact, that remaining hole at right guard is arguably as big as the one in the offensive coordinator's office. The Falcons have been focused on the position in their pre-draft meetings. No player has garnered more attention than Forrest Lamp in these meetings. They met with him at the Senior Bowl, they've talked with him at the Combine, and they've held private workouts. At this point, the question is less, would the Falcons pick Lamp at 31, and more, would the Falcons trade up to get Lamp? In this scenario, he falls to 31, and our guess is that the Falcons run to the podium to get him. Last year, Chris Chester gave up 45 pressures on 629 pass blocking attempts. If the Falcons' offense is to function at that same high level, they will need to keep Matt Ryan's pocket clean, and upgrading right guard is the best way to do that. Obviously, improving the pass rush arsenal is a need too. The Lamp has been a target for a long time in Atlanta.
Right. And with the last pick, the New Orleans Saints will select cornerback Tre'Davious White from LSU. This is a versatile guy you could put in the slot. You could put him out wide. You could put him anywhere as even a dime linebacker in some situations. New Orleans needs a versatile piece on defense, and with the pick they have earlier. Let's see. I had him taking Taco Charlton. Take Taco Charlton to help the pass rush, and you get an upgrade in your secondary in the back end with Tre'Davious White.
Okay. I actually have the Saints taking a corner as well, but I have them taking Marlon Humphrey.
Okay.
Getting Humphrey does wonders for the Saints secondary. Defensive coordinator Dennis Allen coached the worst pass defense in 2016. The Saints were burned for 4,380 yards. That's 270 yards per game, and 27 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Through 16 games, opposing receivers compiled 378 catches for 4,593 yards and 27 touchdowns versus a New Orleans defensive backfield that led to its team finishing at 7-9. Quarterbacks completed 65% of their throws against the Saints, while Humphrey aided an Alabama secondary that allowed a 53% clip in the last 2 seasons.
Right. And that concludes the first round.
All right. I want to thank Eagle Speed for joining me for this.
Right. Yeah, that was good. That was good to get some viewpoints on the draft.
Yeah, definitely. All right. And we are signing out.